You are now about to witness the awesome, crushing might of good boy, Knuckle! Woo! Welcome, my friends. Jesus Christi, I'm dizzy. To a show that apparently never ends. I was catching up on some of my reading, as I want to do. A little light bedtime thing that it's okay. It works in the daytime too. Prison killing techniques, blade, bludgeon, and bomb. You gotta hate somebody. Hate them to blow them up in fucking prison. My favorite is how to make a weapon out of TV guide. There's a lot of proprietary stuff here. I'm not going to give it all away, but the TV guide thing is genius. You see it? So next time you happen to be incarcerated and you got a TV guide on hand, fuck digital, fuck iBooks, Kindles, what kind of weapon are you going to make out of that? TV guides, you can make a push knife. But first, before we get into round 264, words that say it all. Could not see so clear, but I'm taking a real good look at you. I'm taking a real good look at your face. So being paid back in full, always nothing. All right, my friends. It's going to be a short show because if you watch the Care or Don't Care preview, you know that I think that there were only 2 cares on this card. And sorry, that there were only 2 cares on this card. Maybe 3. Maybe Kid Nate had 3. And Kid Nate, yeah, Kid Nate, like Jean Nate. That's how you pronounce it. You know, if you're French. I got French. And so usually what happens is folks will start to text during the fight and say, oh, you didn't care about this one. This is somebody, Ben Wynn, you should have cared of it. And you know who texted me this time? Nobody. And I'm not saying that to say that the fights were bad, because they were not. Now, I got somebody here, I don't know if he wants his name used. He's talking about John Moraga. John Moraga was already a carrot, so that doesn't mean shit, and that was it. He ordered, I don't want to show the phone because it shows his number. He ordered Thin Black Duke, Oxbow's new record, which is available from Hydra Head merch table or iTunes or Tidal or Spotify or Bandcamp, or you got no excuse. Amazon, you got no excuse not to buy the new Oxbow record, except you don't like Oxbow's music. That's a pretty good excuse. Or you're broke. That's a pretty good excuse. If it's a choice between Oxbow's Thin Black Duke and a sandwich, you got bigger problems than I'm going to solve through music. So I suggest you go for the sandwich. And I would completely understand and wouldn't have my feelings hurt. But nobody texted. Not only did nobody text, nobody tweeted. Nobody texted or tweeted. I got text about whether or not female cops do better jobs than male cops. I got text about physical therapist. I got text about a movie called What's this movie called? It's called. Hold on. You can tell me if it was any good. Hold on. I got it. I want to. The A24 production house is on point. The name of the movie was. Hold on. The guy was drunk, or I was drunk. So I wasn't making too much sense. Yamasaki gets a pass to Brazilian Mazzagatti. He's talking about Knuckle Up, Dana White, the bald one, Valhalla. Man, I can't find the name of the movie. It was a good one, apparently, and I meant to put it on my list to check it out. Damn it. I'm stalling. I went, It Comes at Night. Have you seen It Comes at Night? Don't tell me about it. Just tell me whether or not I should see it. I'm going to see it anyway, taking this guy's recommend, but nobody texted me about anything. So let's get to the fight, because I got shit that's burning in my head, and it's a shorter show. So we are in the age of the onion, by which I mean not the humorous site, but by which I mean the slow revelation. We had the immediate post-tour confidence show, where I came back in, and after having been deprived of about 2 or 3 weeks of 16 days of MMA, came back and was greeted with a pretty stellar fight, and said, "Oh my God, these guys have got it right. They pulled it together. Let the good make right this evil wrong. They came through." And then the next week, immediately, I realized that absolutely wasn't true. A series of well-scripted missteps that left no doubt in anybody who's paying attention's mind that we are in deep peril, mostly and largely on account of the civil war that's afoot between WME and the UFC. Old guard, new guard. It's just like Syria, where there are 5 civil wars, not even at this point in Syria, burbling under the surface. They are extant. And this is a similar thing. You got the alpha class, you got the beta class, and you got the zeta class here, right? So, and sadly, the largest grouping, betas, these are people who really want to advance, the rising and advancing of the spirit and the organization. And then you got like the A guys, the alphas, who don't give a fuck really. I mean, fundamentally, these are little plastic pieces on a plastic board for them, and they don't give a shit about it. And then you got the zetas, the people who are actively engaged in fucking shit up, because they know no matter what I do, I don't get another sausage on the plate. Not only do I not get another sausage on the plate, but I don't even have a plate, really, So fuck this, fuck you. I'm in my hole. I got nothing. So not only am I not going to aid and abet your enterprises, like I've said before, if a man gets paid to mop and he does no mopping, he is a rich man. This is very much that say, "Oh, right away, boss, I'll get on it." And the guy leaves the room. You're like, "Yeah, I'll get on. I'm not getting on shit. Whether I work hard or I work easy, my rewards are very similar to being the same." Absolutely nothing of great significance. If the company does super well, guess what I get in the future? A job, which I could probably get anywhere. If the company does poorly, I guess I have to get another job, and my concerns continue. I'm not buying a Malibu beach house. So these are all forces at work. The easiest job is a Zeta class, where they just don't do shit, or they do stuff badly. They're like the teenagers of the UFC WME, and they're in both organizations. Where they're junior agents, start them out in the mailroom at WME. They got to work their way up, but they've seen the future. You know anybody who worked at Goldman Sachs? You know what the expected attrition rate at Goldman Sachs is? They do, and they don't give a fuck. You know why? Because they've got A-plus people there. A-pluses. I got A-pluses, and I can't afford to have a staff full of A-pluses. So you know what that means? It's hyena politics. That means that in utero, some are going to eat the others. If I got A-pluses and you're an A, fuck you. That's what that means. So it is cutthroat, but again, in the case of a company like Goldman Sachs, the organization is served. In this instance, when I say civil war, I mean civil war in that it's not entirely clear that we're going to come out of the other side in a pleasant, happy valley of brotherly love. That's not what I'm talking about. So witness UFC Fight Night 110. The curtain has been yanked back. I'm not going to tell you anything that we haven't seen already. And what we've seen, Strother Martin, thank you. When a man's mother died, he get a little rabbit in his blood, and his mind ain't right. Luke, A Night in the Box. Great movie. Anyway, anyway, we've seen, there's nothing surprising. We've seen the curtain, but what is surprising is the connection that's being made. We've seen the curtain. We're saying, well, what is WME doing? How are they, the betas there that are trying to make things work out, the junior assistants who have some hope, the A+ guys who are low on the totem pole but desire to be alphas, what are they doing there? Well, we've identified one thing. Taking unsung 9-1 guys, 9-0 guys, undefeated, Borrachino, undefeated guys who might have some fucking juice, who might not McGregor juice, but might have some other kind of juice, right? Taking those guys, and we're putting them in something else that they've done, and we can see it in the geos, in the geographies, in the geographic satellites. We can see what they've done. They take a card to England, they take a card to Brazil, they take it to Auckland, and they fill it with a bunch of hometown people. And suddenly, like Columbo, you're sitting there and you're going, I got one other question, if you don't mind. It seems like every time there's a local fight, you stack the, where have we seen that before? Because, of course, we have seen it before. And suddenly there's a Kaz he does Underworld cartoons, great. He's also on SpongeBob. I did an article for him about him on Ozzy. And he's got this character. It's kind of like a later day Robert Crumb with Snort. It's like a modified Snort. And in the Underworld, the guy says, you see all kinds of things if you stop moving. You're like, he's just holding still on the sidewalk. And he sees one other guy who stopped moving. The city's rushing by him, and he's in the thought bubble is like, oh shit, he sees me. And there's another little paranoid guy across the street who's frozen in place and looking at him, which is ideally what they've talked about with schizophrenia. A friend of mine was going to write a story where he says, you see schizophrenics on the street having conversations, and we assume that they're crazy having conversations with themselves. He goes, it's a universal switchboard. And they are, because of the shafts, the myelin shafts along their neural networks are short-circuiting because they're thin. They don't have enough serotonin in their brains. So they're always, it puts their consciousness in a place where it's a collective consciousness. And so they are not having conversations with themselves. This is my friend's premise for his story. He goes, they are having conversations with people who we do not see, who are in other places who have a similar condition and are having conversations with them. So the guy who's walking down the street screaming in Lower Manhattan is having a conversation with a guy in Dallas. But we don't see them. Look at the Einstein-Podolevsky-Rosen theorem. It's possible. Think about thought transmission, precognitive thought. It's possible. They're having long-distance conversations, but we are mired in the present reality, so we don't see it. So like the Snorri-esque character goes, oh my God, I stand here long enough, you notice all kinds of things. You see the guy, oh shit, he sees me. That's where we are right now. We've been paying attention to, the Columbo thing. They're doing something strange when they do regional shows. They do, and they, the bit. And then what do we see? We stop moving long enough, start thinking a little bit, and who do we see? None other than Mr. Scott Coker, baby. None other. If you've seen that formula somewhere else, you've seen it connected to Scott Coker. Scott Coker, who is not an actual failure. Scott Coker started as a regional guy, and I could have some of this wrong. He's a friend of Knuckle Up. I've had him on the show. It depends. My memory could be hazy on this. Started regional things, school gyms, stand-up fights, kickboxing. Maybe involved with ISK, International Sport Kickboxing Association, right? and then got up to doing K1, and then from K1 to doing Strike Force, and then from Strike Force to you realize that he's either failed up, and you cannot honestly use the word failed in connection to Scott Coker, because if they come in and buy your company, bully on you, baby. If I write a book and this book is optioned by HarperCollins, bully on me. This book didn't fail because I self-publish it, and HarperCollins comes in and saves me. That's not what happened. Bjorn Rebney is unemployed, trying to do this thing. So you understand, and Scott Coker, as a friend of Knuckle Up, was open to being called. I called him on stuff on the air. You gotta. I'm not sure if it was one of the Bloody Elbow shows or before Bloody Elbow. This show was on combatmusicradio.com, which is gone. KMBT.com. It's gone. I don't know if it's archived somewhere there. But I had him on, and I called bullshit on a couple of his fighters. I go, how are you going to have fighters in there that I could beat? He goes, could you? I'm telling you. I'll say it, like the 50 Cent song. The DA can play his motherfucking tape in court. I'm putting it on the record. I will kick the shit out of some of your fighters. And they are getting paid to fight in the cage. He goes, well, you're welcome to. So I'm here, buddy. Here's my phone number. Call. And those guys' careers dried up. And I'm sorry about that, but you never should have been there in the first place. And once you were there, you should have worked damn sure to make sure that you could stay there. But he was educable. Scott Coker heard it, made a late field adjustment, and won. As far as I'm concerned, the only loser in MMA that I've been able to see definitively is Bjorn Rebney. And Jeff Blatnick, maybe. Sorry to go back. Because when the WME folks look around for a winning stratagem, they're not looking at the past from UFC 1 to UFC 2. They're not looking at the historical evidence provided for them by the thing that they themselves have purchased. They're looking at deltas, and by which I mean changes. Do you think that right now Bellator has increased in value between when Rebney had it and Scott Coker had it? I can tell you in general, I can tell you that they have. They have. Bjorn Rebney started it, wanted to do some tournament thing. You saw it on Spike. You liked it, you didn't like it. Doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter. Like when I got audited 3 times, the guy sat me down at the desk and said, are you in business? I go, yes, I am. Are you in business to do business? I am in business to do business. Is part of business making money? That is the sole part of business. And yet you have failed to make money. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. How come I didn't see that coming? Motherfucker. God damn it. How did I stumble into that one? You're trying to tell a guy at the IRS that I'm an artist. Meantime, I'm making all this money from Leonard Part 6 and TV commercials, which I'm then funneling back into a business that seems to be failing, so I don't have to pay money, tax money on this other stuff. What do you think about that, Mr. Robertson? Oh, no. Not a good businessman. That's when you start keeping money in strange places where they can't get to it. In any case, they look around, WME looks around, and there are a lot of examples. There's KSW, there's a lot of other fight organizations. There's World Series of Fighting, there's the Pro. There's a lot of stuff to look at. But they're only seeing that one thing, like that little character where the city is rushing around and cars and ambulances, all this stuff. Yeah, I'll see if I can find it. Maybe I'll put it up somewhere on Twitter. The Kaz illustration, the little guy standing. If you hold still long enough, you see all kinds of things. Oh shit, he sees me. And the other little guy is across the street. The only thing they see is cash because that's a lifeblood of business. And if you do not have cash and not procuring large amounts of cash, you're not in business. And if you're not in business, you're a hobbyist. And these are expensive hobbies. So they're looking around, not looking around at Ray Sifo. They're not looking around at, Finkelstein and M1. They're not looking around at, they're looking around at guys who have sausages on their plates. And this is real easy. We humans make snap decisions all the time, and they're well-informed snap decisions. The fact that you are listening to this show and are alive to do so means that you come from a long line of people who have made the correct snap decisions. The people who have made incorrect snap decisions, who are like, hey, I saw a bear in that cave last week. I wonder if that bear's still in the cave. What do you say we go over and take a look? Yeah, let's go take a look. Those guys are not with us. In actual fact, if you consider that, I'm not from a long line of people who have made good decisions. I'm from a long line of people who have made the right decisions. My father's father was a lifelong criminal and raped my grandmother when she was 13. How do you like that? There were no more from where my father came from. An act of crime. And my father had one child with my mother. Not an act of crime, purportedly an act of love, and that was me. My mother came from with a single sibling, an only child. My father has lots of half sisters and brothers, 10 or 12 to my reckoning. And my mother has 2 or 3 to my reckoning. But only one from that strand, like me. By which I'm saying that decisions are made, snap decisions are made, and I'm not saying that they're always good, but they're effective. If you're listening to what I'm saying, and I'm saying what I've said, we've all survived. And when that little guy looks around and all he sees is a guy with sausages on his plate, that says something. Women do this all the time. You ever say, well, it hurts to be on one side and it feels good to be on the other side. You'd be sitting in a bar and a woman comes in, and I remember sitting in this club in Krefeld, Germany called Mono. And gaggles of women would come to this, a new club, and we got there early. It's just a bunch of dudes sitting around. And they kind of stick their head in and scan and go, boom. And there's not a single woman showed up the first 2 or 3 hours in there. Maybe it was a gay bar. I don't know. My German wasn't so strong back then. But these things happen very quickly. It didn't take a lot of institutional thinking to look around and go, well, who's making money? And Scott Coker is making money with Bellator in a way that WME understands. You would think that, over 200 fights with the company that you just bought would be enough. But what that says in business terms, professional sports business terms, what that says is very simply business as usual. There's no growth delta. There's no change in business. There's no increase that you can go back to the stockholders and say, I was here last year and now I'm here this year. You cannot do that if it's business as usual. So it doesn't matter. UFC 1 to UFC 210 or whatever. You can't, or maybe it's like this. It can't be just like this. Not when you make $100 million of guarantees to folks and get $4.2 billion. It's got to be here. And so they look around and the only person they see is Scott Coker. And what Scott Coker does makes sense to them. And then you have the blueprint for UFC Fight Night 110. I'm not saying this is good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not even saying that I believe it to be effective. The question is, how do you feel after UFC Fight Night 110? Oh, you didn't see it. Oh, well, that answers that question. But if you're following the Strike Force, which was folded over. If you're following the blueprint there, you understand that the pay-per-view is not that significant. And what this does, it allows them to make real cash immediately. I don't know how it works with the pay-per-view, but that's not real cash immediately. What is real cash immediately? 15,000 asses and 15,000 seats means you can leave the venue that day with real cash. Maybe a few days later, people are paying with credit cards. Pay-per-view, a lot of hands have to touch that money. It's like at one point I was really like, I could work a corporate job and make $150,000 a year, or I could do my own business for $60,000. What makes the most sense to do? Well, clearly it makes most sense to do the corporate job and your own thing. That's why I was getting audited 3 times. In this instance, you know, getting pay-per-view, whatever, money through the door makes sense, which means they don't give a shit whether you or I watch UFC Fight Night 110. Okay. And that whole act of legerdemain about the average age of the average UFC fight fan is 49. That was some window dressing. Some Michael Corleone talking to his brother-in-law about how he set up the beating of Connie in order to entrap Sonny and have him assassinated. And Carlo admits to this foolishly. I didn't realize that they would. I thought they would just. You're not going to live beyond 5 minutes of this car ride. That's okay. So, insofar as it pleased the locals, which means you can walk into Australia anytime now, and it develops. I mean, the trickle down from this is it develops a farm team that is significant. Because a couple of things. I mean, I'm not saying WME is completely stupid. We know the Ultimate Fighter TV show, even though it's gone, what, 20, 21, 22 years? I don't know how long. Way longer than anybody, than I certainly thought it would last. But are you dialed into that? This is quasi my business, and I'm not dialed into it. Don't have the time. Don't have the time. You're watching on the weekend and then watching this freaking fight. Cream rises to the top, then I'll pay attention to Yair Rodriguez. Then I'll pay attention to somebody, you know. But otherwise, I'm not paying attention. Artist and development, I stole that from Hollywood. That's something that WME understands, artist and development, fighter development. Regional conduits, building regional scenes, building blocks, basic underpinning, foundational stuff makes sense. Not losing money. Scott Coker is not losing money. Bellator, not losing money. It's like Hamlet said about the players. What would they do had they the motive and cue for passion that I have? This is what WME says. What would Scott Coker do if he had the resources? Well, we should do that. Because those growth deltas would make our stockholders, in this instance, people gave us all this money, very happy. So when you see a UFC Fight Night 110, do not base it on the business as usual from UFC 1 to UFC 200, 210, whatever, wherever was the final number, slips my mind. Do not base it on that, because that's just gradual. That's not what $4.2 billion gets you. We're looking for a delta. We're looking for upticks. And the plan that they're drawn from a strength. They're drawn from what they know. And what they know is Hollywood. And what they know is entertainment. That's why a Scott Coker hires a Daniel Puder, who had some Puder. Sorry, I might be mispronouncing his name. Who had some half-ass reality show with pro wrestlers. And when he would come to the cage, he had Puder girls, and they would have Puder rings, and they would throw shit out to the audience. Production value. Pride style. And I have to tell you, if you've been to a recent Bellator fight, it is I haven't been to a basketball game in a long time. Went to a Warriors game like 2010, and it was thrilling. I'm not a basketball fan, but they have clowns. They got guys on trampolines. Everything they do in a commercial is to keep you fucking dialed in acrobats, guys on unicycles. It was sensory overload. Kids would, usually at these games, you see kids bored and crying. Kids were just amped up and over fucking stimulated. And that's the way it feels at a Bellator fight if you go. If you're a person of some sensitivity, after about 2 hours of that, it starts to kind of wear on you. You ever start messing around with a baby? Hey baby, hi baby, oh look at you little cute baby, oh baby. And kids, they can't talk, and they can't really have the motor skills. And when they get fucking tired of you, they do like this. And they just want you to go away. They just stop looking at you. And like, I hope that and that's how you feel when you're sitting at the SAP Center in San Jose, and you're like 4 hours into a Bellator event, and your mind ain't right. You want it to stop. Completely, what the fucking, hey, I love it. Mailman on Sunday, only in my neighborhood. Because the only reason the mailman is working on Sunday is because he slept in his truck Thursday and Friday and then delivered his mail. He's like, I have that shit later. It's like Dave Chappelle's thing about the Black Santa Claus. Anyway, so let's get to the fight. Sorry, this is a long preamble. Let's get to the fight itself. I'm just saying that once you put on your Coker lenses, and this all makes much more sense. Because you know what the response is when you say, like Kid Not Day and I did on Care Don't Care? The response is, fuck you, we don't care. We don't care that you don't care. JJ Aldrich and Chan Mijion don't care. Don't care that you sat through 3 rounds and went to a decision. We don't care. We don't care that you don't care. First 4 fights in this card were decisions. Decisions. You like watching those? Huh? Or then the 5th fight, Damian Brown gets KO'd in the 1st round. You care? Nope. I mean, nobody texted me. Don't fucking bullshit me now. Whatever you were doing on Saturday night was not enough to get your ass in front of this TV. If you start paying attention, like I did with Ben Wynn. And I have to say I paid attention because that was one of my picks. I did pick Tim Elliott, and he fucked up my card. Of course, I did pick Kudala, but I can't find my tote sheet. It's around here somewhere. I can't find it. I did pick Ross Pearson, so I'm underwater. Ross Pearson is a rare cat because he is a dark star. If you remember, in the pantheon, in the pantheon of post-contest reality, a dark star is one of those guys just floating out there by Pluto. And somebody says his name, and you kind of go, yeah. And then they ask you, like, what about, and then I mean, it's a hard way for dude to go. I mean, there's no easy decline. We have yet to see it. Dan Kelly, who we loved, the Tin Man. That's the guy we call him, the Tin Man. You know, you remember the Wizard of Oz, the Tin Man, they get that, oil, he can talk. And then, you know, it puts him in his eyes so he can blink and he can move. That's Dan Kelly. Once again, supporting my decision to be a lifelong Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner. You know, my kid's wrestling coach, who was my wrestling coach when I was at Stanford, I saw him at the graduation hobble up to the platform. Guy had been an NCAA champion, he's like probably about 8 years older than me, can barely walk. But he hasn't been able to walk for like 8 years. Oh, well. And let's look at Helio Gracie. Guy was on the mat till he was 90,000 years old. Judo. Bouncing off the earth apparently doesn't help you play. Dan Kelly gets knocked the fuck out. You know, he had to. That's fine. It doesn't ruin Dan Kelly. Dan Kelly is our Rocky. I would watch him fight again, just like Bambosi. They're guys, there's a whole category, a Wes Sims category. Guys who win through losing. And don't have to have sex with a bald one. That's a proviso. So Brunson win. Do you feel affected? Do you feel anything at all? Not really. I mean, I'm not feeling excited. And then I get to Mark Hunt and Derek Lewis. Boxing style. Card is boxing style, which means top heavy, which means you super care. I did super cared about the top of the card. Didn't really give a shit about this stuff. Wasn't bad. In other words, the struggle to be pleasing on the bottom portion of the card, my expectations were so low that you didn't have to do much to get me excited. And it effectively didn't do much. I was fine. And as I got to the top of the card, in order to stop and pay attention, I expected much, and I got it. I like Derek Lewis. I liked his harassment campaign against, I found it amusing, against the Rouseys. Because he could. I don't think a guy who's 18-5 should be talking about retiring, but I wasn't getting punched in the face by Mark Hunt. I did pick Derek Lewis to win, but I had a sinking feeling because somebody said, look, somebody I trained with that morning said, look, Mark Hunt is not going to grapple him. He's not going to grapple Mark Hunt. And Mark Hunt has boxed and kickboxed a lot tougher guys than Derek Lewis and been hit by the best. And that board, I mean, I don't know about you. I didn't see this going into the fourth round, and yet it did. But it was UFC of old. It was and there was a great, somebody just sent me a link. I'd say I'm going to post it, but about the mechanics, the biomechanics of fat fighting, and about why fat guys are effective fighters. And I got about halfway through, like my old coach Matt Fury said about Matt. You notice that I mentioned his name because I'm about to say something really horrible about him. He said, I read the first pages of Mein Kampf, put it down, decided I agreed with everything I read. He was joking, maybe, I don't know. But I got my Nazi reference in with the Mein Kampf thing. But in this instance, oh God, my train of thought, my train of thought was lost. Well, in regards to Derek Lewis's loss, in this instance, the guy who was telling me at training that that Derek Lewis was hoping to get lucky versus a Mark Hunt who didn't need to rely on luck to beat Derek Lewis. And I think that was largely correct. And that's when I started getting kind of shaky. That's when I like put the book down and figured out that that person was fundamentally not wrong at all. Not enough time for me to change my pick. I could have gone to Twitter at any point. And this was noon, 12:15. I could have gone on Twitter and changed my pick that early. Chose not to. So I'm living with my loss. That's fine. I just figured the hunger that a guy feels who's coming off of whatever it was, four wins in a row. I figure that's pretty substantial. But Mark Hunt is not. He's not worried. He's not one of those guys. His family situation is like, it's not like he's worried about getting seats for his mother or his father. His father apparently was a complete piece of shit who's either in prison or dead now. I can't even go into Mark Hunt's horrible father. So it's not like he's worried about. It's like he's home. He draws breath and spirit from being at home. I just after in the final analysis after that guy said that at training, I was like, yeah, maybe. But as a point of conviction, I heard Kid Nate's voice and chirping in my head. Said, I don't want to back off there. And in any case, I knew that there was no percentage in doing it because he picked Derek Lewis as well. So Derek, Oh, my God. Popeye is voting with his ass. No, you can stay over there, my friend. I've been giving him meaty treats. And as much of a treat as they are coming out, they're an going in, they're an anti-treat coming out. He's looking at me with a guilty look. So yeah, I thought in the final analysis, by 12:30 on Saturday, I largely felt that Derek Lewis was not going to win this fight. But I didn't care enough to change it. And at that point, what I was hoping for was a good fight, and that's what we got. A UFC of old fight. So coming off of UFC Fight Night 110, how do you feel? I feel all right. You know, if we're gonna rank the effectiveness of our drug-induced experiences, and our drug in this instance is MMA, I feel okay. But I feel okay in micro. What I spent the first 20 minutes of the show talking about doesn't make me feel okay. And they're like, Eugene, how can you say that? How you just said that Scott Coker, friend of Knuckle Up, you just spent 20, 30 minutes talking about how he's got a winning stratagem. And I said, yeah, there are lots of winning stratagems. You know who's got a winning stratagem? Let me tell you who has a winning stratagem. McDonald's has a winning stratagem. I don't eat there. Tom Cruise has a winning stratagem. I don't see every Tom Cruise movie. It creeps me out. Oh, there's Tom Cruise again, doing that Tom Cruise thing. And I want to play a drinking game. Like every movie, they had find some excuse for Tom Cruise to rip his shirt off. And The Mummy, he's ripping his shirt off. Like, who's that for? Who is that for? Is it for me? I don't know. I don't know. There's lots of stuff that's successful. There are lots of businesses that have amazing growth deltas. Doesn't mean I like them. Uber is supposed to be a great company. That guy Trevor Kalanick is about to lose his job because he's a number one prick, apparently, allegedly. So what MMA could become, I mean, we don't have a lot of, if you've noticed, we do not have, we don't have any, I'm going to go out on a limb, we don't have any successful combat sport roadmaps. Don't. You ever been to the NFL Hall of Fame? I have. I didn't go voluntarily. I was kidnapped and dragged there by Scott Kelly, guitar player for Neurosis. He's a huge football fan. So I had a choice to sit in the van or we're on tour together or go. He bought me a ticket. Says, how could you refuse? I was like, all right, maybe I got a free ticket. I'll take a lot for free. I'm sure MMA has a Hall of Fame. It's something completely different having a Hall of Fame based on a number one sport in America and having a Hall of Fame, or a museum for a sport that hasn't figured out where it's going to go. And that's why the Civil War is so damaging. Because we're fighting for something in a place that, America as a country is not only an actual thing, it's an idea and an ideal that you can reference, just like you can reference a book. It's called the Constitution. But we're actually trying to fight this civil war and get MMA to a place that no combat sport has been. If you go back to the 50s, you do realize that wrestling, pro wrestling, had been one of the top sports in America. It was up there with baseball, wrestling, and I forget what the third one was. It is not entirely out of the question. Things go in and out. Hockey used to be huge, and in some places it still is. But in general, if they're pulling in numbers lower than WNBA, that tells you something. We don't have to live, like I said on If I Did It last week, growth deltas, we call them growth deltas because deltas work both ways. It just marks a change. And sitting here in Silicon Valley like I am right now, I'm dry. What happened to Silicon Graphics? What happened to Sun Microsystems? What happened to Next? What happened to Ask? I can go down. What happened to Excite at Home? I can go down a list of $1 billion. What happened to the Brobeck, Flager, and Harrison? I can go down a list of $1 billion giants who are dead. And that's why it has become thrilling. Because you can be an anti-alarmist and go, oh, Eugene, you're just being an alarmist. You're crazy. What are you talking about? You're being nutty. This sport will be like what? Really? It came out of nothing. It can return to nothing. You know why? Let me tell you why. Because the tendrils that feed it are healthy. So that means like, that you could cut off the head and the tendrils will live on. Oh, what tendrils? Well, first of all, strip mall martial arts are probably never going to be the same. You're never going back to that. You might convince some soccer mom to have their kids take Taekwondo, but realistically speaking, no. But if I can go to UFC gym and learn MMA, I'm gonna take an MMA class. I'm gonna do UFC, separate from the event. I'm obsessed with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I go 6 times a week. And I can watch grappling events on TV. I can watch ADCC. I can watch shit online. And I can compete myself. If you don't think judo is healthier now as a result of Honda Housey being a judoka, you're wrong. All of the tendrils that have fed it, for practitioners, I got guys who were cigarette smoking, drinking punk rockers who are now boxing. And it started with them trying to jump rope to lose a little weight. I'm looking at you, Sab, to sing for the band Iron Cross. These tendrils are super healthy. Now he's boxing. He's got to compete with boxing. We don't need the head. Don't need it. If you are in a position where you're in a business and think that you are the only people that are in a business that can healthily bank on need are people who sell fucking drugs and cigarettes. It's the same thing. Then you have an audience of people who are motivated by need, but none of us need MMA. There's certain aspects of MMA that we like. If you're a stand-up guy, you love boxing, you can go to a gym and box. You can go to a judo school. You can take Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You could even go to places that do MMA and mix it all together. And yeah, at a certain point, you might be interested in people who do it really well. But I could be perfectly happy going to a jiu-jitsu competition, a pro-level jiu-jitsu competition, and watching. I could be more than happy watching Jake Shields grapple. 1 hour on a Saturday, I did my day. I look at movies, man. Come maybe try to put them in myself. Don't need it. I am there because of guys like Mark Hunt. I am there because of guys like Max Holloway. I am there because of Johnny Boney Joni and Daniel Cormier. I am there because of Demetrius Johnson. Do not confuse us being there for any other reason, because the tendrils that feed this sport are healthy. And it doesn't follow that the core itself is healthy. This is a way of concluding that saying UFC Fight Night 110, if we're going to use a drug parallel with MMA, was good. Is it great enough to save the sport? To create a delta that will make you feel good about the $4.2 billion if you're one of the alpha class of WME? If you're part of the alpha class of WME, you need to fucking lean in. Use that disgusting Silicon Valley term created by Sheryl Sandberg, whatever her name is. Lean in as Popeye. You're gonna, because we're not coming along. $60, $65. Last time I went to watch the fight last week, cost $15. Go with the wife, that's $30. That's a lot of fucking entertainment. And she doesn't even like the fights. So then it's like I'm hoping that you give me something that will entertain her, not me. I gotta watch them. They raised the price because there were only like 8 people in there. And it's a good way to get money in for their 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock before it becomes a Mexican disco. But am I going to go again with $15 times 2? Probably not. Don't know. Don't know. Can you base your business plan on I don't know? I don't know. I don't know if you can base your business plan on I don't know. But I'm not investing in a business whose business plan is I don't know. So I know this sounds like a critique. It's not. Mark Hunt and Derek the Black Beast Lewis, manly. Great fight. It's like that old meme from the 70s. And it showed some bored-looking model. She's looking, and the legend underneath was, so I'm beautiful, so what? All right. UFC Fight Night 110. So it was good. So what? And the subtitle of the show is about the Emperor's New Wardrobe. Like, you know, we're not going to tell you guys. The thing is, we see. You need to know that we see. And really, what we need from you is to know that this is an earnest act of faith that you've invested in this business because you care about the health and the welfare of the business. And I'm okay with us calling it a business because I'm okay with you making cash like the guy from the IRS drilled into my head. If you're in business, money, business, I'm okay. I could steal it, but I'm paying the $15 to watch it legitimately. 15 times 2, watch it legitimately. I want to be tallied. But you can't treat you guys like shit. You're not going to get everything. I mean, maybe you're looking at Demetrius Johnson and going, where he doesn't fit into the schema of the future because he is enough of a star so that we don't have any hometown identification with him. Really? Let's ask people in Ohio how they feel about LeBron James. It's the people in LA who spray painted nigger on his door. So they got a response. Somebody tracked him down and got a response from the bald one. And it was perfectly Trumpian, and it makes sense that they're friends. He's like, I never threatened to kill the division. So, it was like Robert Craig when he said he was accused of soliciting an undercover police officer in a bathroom in an airport, I think in Minneapolis. And he said, you know, and people were like, oh, this is just a witch hunt. They were like supporting him. And he goes, hey, I got a wide stance. And that's cue the clown music. That's when half the dudes in America go like, you know, I piss at a urinal several times a day, and my stance never becomes an issue. What he should have said, and so immediately every single guy in America was like, bullshit on that. Come on, who are you kidding? I've never had this be an issue when I'm pissing. What you do say is, swine had peed all over the floor, so I had to have a wide, but you don't say I traditionally have a wide stance, and that's why I was sticking my business card under the fucking thing, making finger signs under the partition. That's when Senator, I think his name was Robert Craig, the guy from Idaho. I'm not gay. Of course you're not. Of course you're not. You know, they were filleting me. I'm not gay. Yeah, you know what? Keep that prison logic to yourself. My point is, we need to understand that Dana's trying to spin this thing. I never said that. We don't believe you. Don't believe you because you're not believable. And you got to know increasingly that because you've got WME giving the last word, not you and the Fertittas giving the last word, but this is the wave of the future. You're beating up on somebody in private, you're going to force them to go public, and now it's your move. And if your move is to say, I never said that, are you 5 years old? Are you 5 years old? I will testify in front of Congress that what Comey said is a total lie. Easy, buddy. Easy. It's a total lie, 100% of a lie. He completely fabricated the entire, just because you can say stuff like that doesn't mean you should say stuff like that. Yes, the only two of you in the room, that's why you sent everybody out, but everything that I could say has support in real world parallels. For example, I opened the I talked during the show about talking to people at training about the fight Saturday night. You could check my phone log to see if I made calls from Mountain View. You might see photos of me in Mountain View training, somebody else's website. You do not know what's going on, but if there was a congressional investigation, you could put together a lot of stuff to figure out exactly what's going on. In this instance, the parallel being to UFC and MMA, you cannot lie to us about earnest acts of faith in the health of this fucking sport. Because it's not just enough to have a good night. If we don't believe you, we don't come back. Like the people who baseball lost when they had the strike. We don't believe in your fundamental business model. I don't believe that I can trust you to give good sports for the foreseeable future. Sorry. So I'll just focus on the shit that interests me most. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, judo goes with bet. Because the bet that the UFC was created to solve has already been solved. We know that a Wing Chun guy is probably not going to be the guy who's got some grappling skills. We know that a Taekwondo guy is probably going to get beat by a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. All that barroom betting stuff, it's all been solved. So in actual fact, don't need the UFC. I'm saying this like I've said it. Somebody needs to speak truth to power, that you trifle with the collective and you trifle with the long-term fucking viability and health of whatever it is that you're trifling with. That's it. That's it. So if you want some deltas that make sense, let's talk about deltas that make sense. Let's talk about the growth delta from good to great. Let's talk about the growth delta from great to super great. Well, don't talk to me about Coker-esque entertainment. That's fine. If you need that to get from one to place to other, that's fine. But I think had Coker had the motive and cue for passion, he's educable and can change. It was change course and is smart about his business. Got rid of the things that made it tawdry, but it's still a little tawdry. I trust Scott Coker like I trust a cockroach. Survive. Cockroaches will survive. But what we're asking is something that we've never asked of anybody and something that we've never seen. If you're interested in combat sports and saw them in the 50s, where it was one of the #1 sports in America, to where it is now, fractured and divided. And that's a heavy order for anybody. Baldwin, Coker, WME, anybody. So I'm pulling. And us true fans, we're all pulling. But don't fuck with us and don't fuck with the sport, because you do it at your own peril. That's the end of the show. I said I was going to end early, and I did. 30 seconds early. Sorry. So listen, go if you made it this far, go, if it's on YouTube, give us the thumbs up, and then it'll be up on Bloody Elbow tomorrow. And you can go to Twitter feed. If you half the shit I'm talking about, you don't know what I'm talking about, it's probably because it's on a Twitter feed. So it's @ symbol Eugene S. Robinson. S standing for scare the shit out of the neighbors with the scream. A lot of S's, alliteration. Mr. Sleep 3 on Instagram. But if you got no post on there, can't let you in because I think you're a spy and I don't trust you fundamentally. So, and if you want to do that cutesy thing of like, oh, he's set it to private. You don't private me if I'm privating you. The onus is on you. Also, Buy Thin Black Duke. You'll love it. I spent the major portion of yesterday packaging up stuff. So if you ordered the Thin Black book, the second tranche is going to go out Monday or Tuesday. I got it all boxed and ready to go. I hate they see you come in the post office, they hate you, and the people standing behind you, they really hate you. But I got a shitload of stuff going out tomorrow, so you get your stuff. If you neglected to send me your address, do it. If you ordered and your order went through PayPal and you didn't put an address in there, your shit just goes to the bottom of the list because I don't have time. Anyway, that's the show. Knuckle Up, round number 264. I am your host, Eugene S. Robinson. You heard Mr. Sleep 3 on Instagram, Eugene S. Robinson at Twitter. Buy the Oxbow record, Oxbow, O-X-B-O-W. The record's called Thin Black Duke. It's everywhere, everywhere. You can buy it, stream it, pay for it. Nice. Listen, I think you'll enjoy it. Anyway, that's the end of the show. We'll see you on Tuesday night with If I Did It, me, Kid Nate, and Alexi, the Punch Holes. That's what we start to call ourselves now, instead of assholes. Punch Holes. And then on Wednesday morning, probably a Care Don't Care preview. And for those of you who in the UK, I will be Sunday night, a week from today, I'll be in Birmingham at Supersonic. So if you want to get on the list to go to the show, let's do the quiz. You know the routine. You answer the 3 questions. I'll put you on the list. Anyway, we'll see you soon. And look what you made me do! I got you. All right.